Hello. I'm going to actually read a little bit today about where do I begin. I was asked, and I've been asked again just recently, how did I start the process? What did it involve? And I know for a lot of people, especially if you're on your own, and it is quite a tricky thing knowing who to ask and where to go. So I wrote all this down a little while ago, and I thought, well, I'll share it again today, seeing as it's been cold, rainy, and horrible, and couldn't do much today. So it was quite interesting to look back at this. And what I put is that pre-planning consultations, right? I had a pre-planning consultation done on the barn. In my experience, I would say that was a money-making exercise for the council. I was told I wouldn't get planning as the building was of no architectural interest. Well, bearing in mind the dovecot on the building is a beautiful dovecot. It was still had the nesting boxes. It still had the original dovecot entrance. Local to me is a National Trust property called Gumby Hall, which has a beautiful dovecot, obviously much more grand than mine, and I will show that in the photos in a little bit as well. But how they could say it was and they didn't even come out. It was literally a desktop ticking exercise, if you like. That cost me £189.79 at the time. And that information was delivered to me in an email 2 months after the council's agreed timescale. So I wasn't honestly very impressed by that at all. And I think the only thing it helped me with is forewarning us of the objections that might be. Bearing in mind there were new builds going up in the village just down the road from me. Another building was being converted 3 properties away from mine, but apparently they don't take this into consideration either. And considering the guidelines for brownfield sites, which are sites that have been previously developed or previously had a use, which are obviously more favourable than building out in open countryside, the greenfield fields for obvious reasons. And my property was in between 2 other dwellings within what was the original village envelope. The village envelope used to describe the part of a village where development could still be considered. And that's changed over the years as the need for housing has grown. So the council's response, I felt, was very, very frustrating, to say the least. But the one thing I have learned over the years is that planning's about ticking boxes. And it's not necessarily logical. And there's definitely no room for emotions in there. So undeterred, I thought it was time to get some independent advice. Planning consultants in the past had managed to secure planning permission on a grade 2 listed building that I had previously, that was an antique centre. That had been really fun getting building regs on, but I've always found that when you get to that brick wall where they're saying, no, 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 then I would just say, well, can you give me some advice? I never get upset with people. I never argue with them. I've always said to them, what would you do if you were me? And then suddenly, I think they are in a position where they do get attacked quite a lot by people, but everybody feels what they're doing is really important, and I understand that. But by just treating them as human beings who are just trying to do a job and asking for their help, suddenly it changes the energy of it, and it seems to change the way they look at things. And I found people then would start to be more helpful, basically. So I would always do that. What's your advice? What would you do if you were me? And also explain that you understand the constraints they're working under. You understand the difficulties of their job. But is there any way they can help? And most people, I find, human nature, really actually do want to help you. And it tends to diffuse a standoff, I find, as well. I also find a good working relationship. It's great to learn from these people, because actually a lot of them have been in the industry, if you like, for a long time. And often they can point you in the right direction and who to speak to. So back to planning consultants, that's something the planning consultant I'd used previously had moved away. This wasn't his specialism, if you like. So I used the powers of Facebook and put it out there, and one of my friends happened to know a lady who lived out the county who was a specialist in getting planning on agricultural buildings. So it's like, oh, thank you very much. She's lovely. She knew the area really well. She knew our council, because all councils have different constraints, different ways of looking at things, different boxes to tick, if you like. So I liked it because she was an unknown quantity from out the area, but I say knew Lincolnshire well and knew the East Lindsey District Council and how they worked. So she took on the planning and application process as my agent, and she was invaluable, absolutely invaluable in gaining full permission. This I'm going to say carefully, but I find there is very much a who knows who in the world of local government, right down to the parish level. So to use an agent with that knowledge, but without people knowing her, that unknown quantity thing was definitely, I felt, an advantage. She also put me in touch with an architect based in York, but he was born and bred in Lincolnshire, literally a town away from here. So again, lots of local knowledge, but another unknown quantity as well. He drew all the plans for the application, also put all my building regs in as well. Another way I would say to go about finding an architect is to go onto your local planning application site. Look at all the applications that have been approved and declined. Look at the council case officers that made the planning decisions, and look at the architects that have done the plans for the ones that were approved. And you will soon see a pattern emerge. Especially look at the most contentious applications, the ones that have had many objections that still got approved. I'll let you read into that what you will. Anyway, by having this lady as my agent, I was able to step back, and when things weren't going great, I could vent to her, and then she was able to deal with it professionally. So there's no room for emotion in the planning process. I am quite an emotional person, so that to me was an absolute boon. It was like, yes, I could say all the things I wanted to say, and she would go, I totally agree with you. I would go away feeling happy, and then she would go away and deal with it in a really professional way. I think one of the cases was I had bat surveys done. That was really important. There were bats that would visit, if you like. Lots of bats flying backwards and forwards, but the roosts for them were in the local church. But I was forced into having lots more surveys than perhaps I would have normally needed. At quite an expense, but I don't mind, because I want to live alongside nature. I love nature, and I wanted to do the best for them as well. But the fact that she had all her contacts meant that she could get literally somebody on the job straight away, because everyone and their mother at the time, we'd literally be coming out of the lockdowns. The bats roosting season is November to May, so you can't work, you've only got a certain amount of time that you can work in, and then once they're in the breeding season, then that's it, you're off limits again. So we knew we had to get these surveys done. We knew that we needed, obviously, to be able to prove that the bats were safe, and that one of the things that I was going to be asked to do was to put bat boxes up. So we looked into really working with them to make the best environment for the bats, really. Things like if I had any objections on the planning that came in online, we were able to talk through them and see that they weren't planning policy reasons. And really, at the end of the day, planning is decided on policy. I also got the local policy. It's a booklet like this, or you can read it online. Great bedtime reading, especially if you're an insomniac, because you will go to sleep after about 3 paragraphs. But joking apart, you soon get the gist of what's important and what matters to your area. And you don't want to upset anybody. You want to live alongside your neighbours. You want to live alongside people. And I had so much support from my village, so much support from the people around me. I went out and told people what I was doing, showed them my plans, talked to them, explained it, and the amount of support that came in for me, that actually was really heartwarming. So there was only a few, shall we say, people that have issues with people doing anything or getting on. So again, going back to my agent, being able to talk all this through, because it's very easy to take it personally, and you've got to be able to look back and go, no, I'm not going to worry about that. It will be what it will be. I'd already sold my home, and literally before I had this planning, and I'd had to move around here, not even knowing if it was going to go through. So being able to have that, I think was, again, just it's the support, and they are so good at their jobs. I say there's so many things we can do ourselves, but I think sometimes it's worth paying somebody to do the job. That middle person, that professional person, I would highly recommend it. She even supported me as well, because I ended up with a land registry issue as well, to do with problems when I'd previously sold a field, and land registry had registered at an angle, if you like, and I had ended up having to apply to basically give the farmer I sold it to his bit back, and having to then pay for him to give me my bit back as well. And they'd also not drawn into a gateway. And it's just things at the time, looking at plans, and you're not realising what a difference that can make to you. So she was really, really supportive over helping me. And again, I found a way of speaking to them on a daily basis at Land Registry and really getting on with them. Again, asking for help, asking for advice, explaining the situation. And it's amazing how supportive people are. So I put here, don't be put off by their voicemail saying that they're only dealing with urgent cases. If you persevere, you get through, and then they are lovely. So just to give you a bit of an idea, going back, because we are going back to 15th November 2020 this was, but for my pre-planning consultation, it was £189.79. The planning consultant, I paid £924. Architect drawings for the house conversion, £1,372. Architect drawings for the garage, £483. Architect building regs, £2,594. Structure report on a beam, £157. The BAT surveys, £1,135. House conversion planning application fee, £462. Garage planning application fee, £231. Building notice for the garage fee, £399. The building inspection fee for the house conversion, £536.40. So that total was £8,481.31. So it's amazing when you look, and that's just getting to the stage where you're going to start. So I think sometimes if you've got that information and you've got that up front and you're expecting it, because there are always going to be hidden costs. I knew there were always going to be hidden costs, but at least if you've got that in place to begin with, and that's an expected, all those bits, I say, you add them up. When you look at them and you think, oh, that's 400 quid, that's this, but then when you add it up and it's £8,500, then you have to suddenly think and go, yes. Is it worth it? Yes, it is. Is it a process? Yes, it is. Will you enjoy it? Absolutely. But I hope that might have been of use to somebody. And like I say, keep smiling. You will get there in the end.